Hello and welcome to the Executive Pill, the podcast where brilliant leaders from every corner of the world share their secrets to help you lead smarter, influence better, and succeed faster. Think of it as your cheat code to navigating leadership with clarity and confidence. I am your host, Alex D. Tremble, CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions. And over the past decade, I've had the privilege of working with executives at Fortune 500 companies, government organizations, as well as fast moving, high growth organizations in the middle. And what we found is that they have unique challenges that can only be addressed by people who have unique experiences. And this is what we're bringing you in this podcast. This podcast is your shortcut to learning what works from the best of the best. And I promise you this, what you're going to hear today is not theory, it's proven strategy that you can use today. And before we jump in, please do us a huge favor that actually requires a little bit of energy, which is click that like button and please subscribe. Why? Because we live in the attention economy, and your click is the fuel that helps these ideas, these stories that are shared by our guests, reach more and more people, which have the ability to impact more and more lives. So please do us a quick favor and click that like if you haven't done so already. Now, with no further ado, let's have an extraordinary day together. Today we have with us the Miss Tara Blythe, and you will maybe know why I laugh, I smile when I hear the name Tara. We'll maybe talk about that. But Tara serves as as Infotech's Chief People Officer and VP of People, Culture, and Communications, where she leads the organization's organizational development, people operations, strategic planning and innovation, and communications to support a people-centric culture. With over 20 years of experience in strategy and change transformation, Tara is an advocate for integrating technologies like generative AI into leadership practices and enhancing organizational effectiveness. Honestly, she is just an amazing leader with not only a significant background in the OD and people space, but also a business owner. And so hopefully we can dip our toe into that. How are you doing today, my good friend?
I am doing well, Alex. And I will say, we've only talked on the phone previous today, but you are a hype man, sir. Can I just walk around with me? No, that was wonderful.
I can be your Flavor Flav. For all those who get that reference, I will be your professional Flavor Flav. I have been waiting for this conversation for so long, since we last spoke, because when you and I've spoken, like you just have this energy, this aura around you that is not only, again, yes, very professional, very strategic and thought provoking, because you in your job do some amazing things across your industry with as well as within your organization, but you also do it in a way where you care about people. And that's a really amazing blend to have. So, Miss Tara, would you mind enlightening those individuals who haven't had the opportunity to be around you and in your space? Who are you, and what is it about your past that helps us understand who you are and how you became who you
Okay. So first of all, I will say that yes, to your comment, I would describe myself as incredibly people centered and human being centered, and the understanding that people are unique, that they're unique individuals, and they have an opportunity to impact you in a really special way if you would only stop and look and make that connection. So I guess a couple things about me. I'm a connector, right? I'm a connector with purpose. I have been able to apply that to a career path. So I don't think in systems necessarily, but I can see a bigger architecture. I think in relationships and kind of ripple effects and the bigger picture idea. I've always been drawn to people. So even though, I work in the strategy space, I work in organizational development. Currently, I'm very focused on digital transformation and the future skills of work. I talk quite a bit to that. I'm focused on that both in my professional world and in my role at Infotech, but in my industry that I'm helping to serve right now, which happens to be civil and infrastructure construction. But my leadership lens always comes from the idea of what does this mean for people? for many years in my space in organizational development as a chief people officer, or prior to that, it was a HRO, right? A chief human resource officer, or human capital before that. Or if we go back not too long ago and we call them personnel department. Ultimately, there's a big conversation. There still, unfortunately, is a big conversation about having someone with my role at an executive table that sits at that executive table. But in my history, I will say, and I probably will answer this in a couple ways today in that way, which telling you a few stories, I have been lucky enough to have access to that table early in my career and to understand that I can bring influence to it. So I guess a couple other things that I would say about myself that the guests should know. One, I don't see leadership as a ladder to climb. I see it as a bridge to build. And I, throughout my career, whether I'm providing career counseling or support, and early on when I was a career counselor at both the University of Florida and the University of Georgia, where I taught career and leadership development courses at both those universities, I spoke to many students. And the number one thing I would always give them is get out there and meet people, connect, like build those relationships, because those relationships will come back tenfold. You can have 1,200 resumes that you randomly send to someone and 4 strong connections, and those 4 connections will have much more impact on who you are, right? So tell you a little bit about my background and where I came from and why I went in that field. I'll also add to it, my dad's my hero. He's still around. He is struggling with dementia right now. So anyone out there who is taking care of a loved one and watching the most brilliant man, I just got a little emotional, the brilliant man I know kind of fade in front of me. But he's also a Vietnam veteran, and I'm deeply influenced by his values, and those became my values in my early life. So discipline, humility, service, leadership to me starts with respect, but respect for perspective and lens. It is built, right? So, but you have to give that opportunity. And then a responsibility for my superpower, and my superpower is absolutely influence. I have the ability to lean in and understand, to capture feedback and to mirror feedback, to have someone else understand what the person across the table said, because I say it in a way that that person can receive it. That is my superpower, right? And that translates to an opportunity for influence that I have tended to apply in the organizational development space. Lastly, I love music. I absolutely love music. I am not incredibly talented myself at music. I surround myself by people that are. My brother is an incredible musician. There's a playlist for my life. So to me, I was trying to come up with something of like, how do I describe leadership that's a little bit more fun than I've done in the past? And I would say it's like a playlist for me. It's rhythm, it's harmony, it's space for solos, and it's space for silence, right? And that is a little bit about how I think I see the world, and a little bit about my background.
You said so many things that I want to follow up on.
Go ahead.
And I'm gonna try. I'm holding this horribly. I'm gonna go backwards. Leadership as it relates to music, and one of the things you said was the silence. And if you think about it, if you think about music, there are times when you don't hear anything, and that silence is powerful. And I would say the same thing goes in leadership. There's times when your silence speaks much louder than any words you could put up at the moment. Have you experienced that, utilizing silence, or again, maybe another way of saying is providing the floor to others? Have you ever utilized that silence, and can you share what it was like, and how did you know that was the best move for that situation?
Yeah. I'll answer broader, and then I'll try to come up with an actual example for you. And there's so many fleshing into my mind right now, but I would say, have I ever? Yes, every single day, every single moment, right? So to me, it is like music. It's a flow. It's like where you're going in the moment. There are times where leadership is the traditional sense, the person that has the title, or this is an executive appeal podcast, right? So you, in theory, Alex, you reached out to me because I have a title that says I'm an executive and that I've earned my spot at a certain table. But that's not what makes me a leader. What makes me a leader is my ability to see the other people in the room. And so that is my definition of silence. And that comment, you were right on it. I do believe that leadership often is presenting a platform and an opportunity and a space for those under your care, under your influence, under your colleagues, or those that you can learn from to have their own step forward. And that often can create harmony, right? As that's often we're singing together. And often it's me taking a step forward, and often it's me taking a very strategic and very important step back. And attempting to create that space in that different way. Oh gosh, I'm trying to learn the first time I learned that. I would say, I think it was something, and I do feel lucky about this, probably instilled in me and what I saw and others do and great leaders that I looked up to. But in one of my first roles, in a professional HR job, I was in charge of recruitment and retention for a large furniture retailer in South Florida called City Furniture. And I was still relatively young in my career. I got that job when I think I was 23. And I had 9 people reporting to me, right? And I was eager to prove that I had the responsibility, and I tried to carry it all on my shoulders for a long time. And I had to learn that lesson kind of hard, but I noticed that I knew I was surrounded by extraordinary people. And I knew that my ability to coach and mentor and support and get out of their way and learn from them was one of my greatest skills, and it wasn't something that was going to threaten me or be a concern. And so I have that would probably be my best experience of, I remember, and it was a room of other, we were all one man on that team, poor man. There was 8 women, 1 man. And we but in many a conversation, I remember thinking, step back and pass the mic. If we're continuing the music analogy, pass the mic. And I've taken that with me ever since.
This is interesting because, so those of you who listen to the podcast regularly probably realize that my first job as a quote unquote adult, was to create and manage the Executive Leadership Development Program for the U.S. Department of the Interior, as well as managing 3 government-wide Executive Leadership Development programs. And I got that job when I was 23. And I thought that was so amazing. It didn't make sense. I shouldn't have hired a 23-year-old kid, but I did well. And I was very successful, and it allowed me to now have the foundation to serve the executive leaders I do today. My point in saying this is that I felt like I was unique in that not many people that age had the opportunity to step into these significant leadership roles early in their life. But the more I've interviewed these amazing leaders via this podcast, the people I've worked with, in coaching and so on and so forth, I see a lot of them actually start off younger. But at the same time, I'd like to ask you, Tara, there's the opportunity for these young people to do these amazing things. At the same time, we know that not everyone is ready for it, or there's this perception that you got to start at the quote unquote bottom. How do you know when to invest in that younger person, when to provide them with that space to do something amazing at a younger age, which they can build on? And I'd love to hear more about that.
So, Alex, I haven't heard your specific story, and I'm going to go back and try to find your podcast where you said that. But I'm going to ask you maybe a question back on that quickly before I answer your question, and say that opportunity you just touched on. And I'm sure your listeners have heard about it. What opened that door? How did you get that opportunity?
A relationship. I was networking via LinkedIn, just building, just serving people, never asked for anything, just serving, providing answers and so on and so forth. When I actually put out there, I was looking for an opportunity. I literally, within a week's time, had 6 people offer me jobs. This being the first one being one of them. And she actually in the interview said, weirdly, she didn't ask me not one question about my qualifications that entire interview. She just was talking about our backgrounds, where I was from, and connections. And she actually said someone else had reached out to her saying that she needed to help talk to me. Now, what I also would say is that she gave me this opportunity that I did not think she was honest about. I'm like, there's no way she can really let me do this. But she gave me the opportunity, while at the same time provided me the support and the overhead and the backing. So when I messed up, it wasn't the end of my career. She provided me that space and that backing. And I think if you do that, you have to be able to do that second part as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So my comment back to answer your question directly is I am going to question your assumption and how you phrase the question to me on how could you give them that opportunity? How do you know it's right? What's the risk in not? What's the risk in not, right? And I do have that same experience, and I do wonder, and I'm sure there's a research study that would show this. I know there's ones that I used to read that it is those connect. I teach for a living. I taught people career development courses, hundreds and hundreds of students at the University of Georgia and the University of Florida. I taught them how to interview. I taught them all the things they should do. And then I'm in my space, I am in HR. I've probably conducted easily over 5,000 interviews in my career, maybe more, right? Probably actually 3 to 4 times that if I really tried to think and count. I have interviewed myself officially in a formal interview setting that we teach these young people to do twice in my career, because every other job I've gotten through a relationship. I've gotten because someone came after me, or they opened a door, or they asked me to look at something, right? And so I'm going to answer your question very directly. What's the risk of not? Yeah. Like what if every individual, every person has the potential, open the door and give them the space and see if they grab it. And in some cases, yeah, you might have to do that a couple times. And I do think that that's probably my greatest leadership quality is I am consistently looking for those individuals around me. I always, like in any space that I'm in, I was joking with my husband about this last night, is I'm pretty highly educated. I have a lot of degrees. And I'm very proud of my strengths. Like if anybody's a strength finder fan or any of that, mine tell you who I am. I'm strategic, I'm woo, I'm a maximizer, I'm an activator, I'm empathy, those things. Learner isn't up there. Input isn't up there. Like for people are always a little shocked of, I wouldn't describe myself as a lifelong learner necessarily. My husband's sitting next to me in bed reading the news and giving me the executive summary, and I'm engaging with him. But what I am is I will see a person in a space and I will hear them make a comment, and I will walk up to them and I say, tell me more about you. Yeah. Tell me more about your perspective and where you're coming from and where that works. And the majority of my team right now at Infotech has worked with me, like some as I found them as an intern. They followed me from my previous role at the University of Florida. I invest in people. I see people that way. So I push back on you and say, what's the risk in not? Like, why would you not give that opportunity? I do not believe in a you have to earn your stripes type mentality necessarily. Like, open the door and give them the platform to be able to do it. And that could bring me on a whole nother platform. And some people never get that platform. But what we can do and engage, if we're actually giving advice to people that are looking for that leadership, is build those relationships, connect with people, have people see you. And then I used to teach a class that was called Building Your Brand, right? Or one of the classes that I use. And I would say, engage with people and keep in mind that you want to understand how they'll remember you, right? For the right reason. So when you have your soundbite, your perspective, your space, why are they going to remember you? Why are they, what makes you unique? What makes you stand out? And that's always been my advice.
I want to share a very, 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 very short story. Actually, all those varies made it longer. I was speaking at an event in the Rockies one year, and it was a youth event. I love speaking with youth whenever I can, and I met this young kid. I think he was probably like 16 years old, something like that. And I was like, "Hey, like, so what did you do this summer?" And he was like, "Oh, I hunted a lone wolf." I said, "What?" This little Native American dude, and I was like, "What'd you say?" He's like, "Oh, I hunted a lone wolf." Like, who did it? Like, how many of you did this? He's like, "Oh, I did it."
No.
And I was so, it just makes your point. Like, our young people in general, period, but I'm going to use this for this example. Our young people are capable of so much if we give them the space to try.
Yeah.
versus starting off saying, you're too young, you're too small, you're too whatever. Provide them a space to try. And again, whenever necessary, provide that backing because, yeah, they'll make a mistake. Why? Because everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
You,
And then in that space, when you give them that space to try, when you open that door, you make sure people feel seen. Right. So
mhm,
that's something I said in my intro too, is I really like, I make people feel seen. Like often people in my life have a nickname, not because I'm trying to be cute, but because I'm trying to honor who they are. Right.
mm,
I designed systems. That's how I describe my career. I designed systems that center on people's strengths and give them an opportunity to shine and then try to get out of the way. Well, that's what organizational development is. It's a clarity of where a business is going and creating the structures for the success of that business. But I tie to that understanding that people are the key to that business. Right. So
mhm,
that's what we're doing. And I will say it does apply to young people, but it also applies to
mhm,
career changers and people at
yep,
different stages in their career and spaces.
yep.
That is leadership.
I mean, if you just look at, I mean, you could do, anyone could do a Google search right now of like these people who became super successful at like 40, 50, 60 years old. There's these branding corporations around because of them. Like,
Yeah.
again, it's so easy to look at quote unquote, kind of say quote unquote, to look at media, social media and see, oh, those are the people who are winning. I have to be like this. I have to look like this. I have to be this age. Oh my God, I'm past that age. I should just give up. Like again, I think so. I honestly, I think really think social media is done. Yes, it's done a lot in connecting us. At the same time, this constant comparison is has been very very unhealthy for us. I want to ask you because we were talking about these understanding everyone has capability. I want to switch the conversation to AI a bit,
Okay.
and I'm sure you're aware of this study that recently came out, but I'm gonna preface it with saying I love this example I use. So I'll ask my audience, whoever I'm talking to, hey, how many phone numbers do you know off the top of your head? And do you know 5 phone numbers? And there'll be a scattering of people who put their hands for 5 phone numbers. Okay, how many of you know 10 phone numbers? Everyone's hand immediately goes down. No one remembers 10 phone numbers.
Mhm.
And then I ask, so those 5 phone numbers that you know, how many of them are actually relevant? Or like this phone numbers you knew from like when you were a kid or something like that. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, maybe not 5. The point being, our brains are very efficient, and when it figures out that it doesn't need something, it gets rid of it because it frees up space for something else. And so, we have phones, so we don't need to remember phone numbers anymore. MIT recently came out with a study showing that people who utilize AI or quote unquote depend on AI, their brains are literally shutting down because they're not thinking anymore. They're relying on AI to do their thinking for them. Um, and so the reality is that like, AI is an amazing tool, and we need to be thinking of it as a tool. How do we leverage it versus how do we versus just giving our minds over to AI? But I'd love to because this is the world you play in, you talk about this type of stuff. How do you, as an organization, make sure that you're leveraging AI to increase efficiency, to support, and so on and so forth, while so not falling into a place where you're so heavily reliant that you don't think analytically anymore, you don't think strategically anymore because you've given that ability away?
Yeah. And I'm going to say the confines of that research study were designed for an outcome. And I don't disagree with the outcome. And so those that are using it as a crutch, right? Using it as a crutch to accomplish something so I don't want to do the research myself and I wanted to
Yeah,
just give
yeah,
me it. And but I would mirror to that. It's not that different than when Google came out originally and you were able, it's just now also forms that thought if you don't lean in. For
mhm,
those that are using it to elevate the way they're thinking and the way that transformation and digital transformation can be done. So any great invention that changed our world, if we go back to the manufacturing revolution, we had many people being very scared of the idea because we were replacing what I used to do with my hands. But
yeah,
now we're starting to come out what people do with their head, right? What they do with
yeah,
their brain, what they went to school for, what they create as their unique identity, and they feel like it's coming for them. But what it really does, it has an opportunity for us to go faster. I've used this analogy for the last 2 years. It still works today. It's going to stop working because it's going to be everywhere. But AI still at this stage is like the people mover in the airport. It really is. It's created where it has an opportunity. It's a path. It's a path you can choose to take. There's tools now pulled into the tools you already use and everything you do. We have a magic sparkle icon because that's human nature. If we don't understand how it works, we call it magic. We have a magic sparkle icon that will either be turned on for you soon, or you can click and choose to turn on. Similar to the airport, that people mover, if you get on and you use it correctly, which by the way is not standing on it, it's walking on it, you will get to the same space faster, right? It will help you get there faster. And so I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to think, it will not shut off people's brain. It won't. Like the people there, you are looking at the skeptics and you can prove a study that if you use it that way, it'll help you think at a faster rate. It'll teach you to probe. It'll teach you to ask questions at a different level. We now are transforming our populations and our skills of our workforce. We're moving from problem solvers to problem finders, to stepping back and figuring out what is the right question to ask. That, by the way, design thinking teaches us this, strategy teaches us for 70, 100 years now. That is the key to true strategy, is somebody that's willing to question the question. Now we have a partner who help us answer the question. Our job is to ask a better question, right? That is a enhanced leadership skill. So I will absolutely challenge everyone, and clearly I'm getting a little louder as I speak about this. This is of me. I will challenge anyone that says that this is a negative to the way people think and say, only if you choose to use it wrong. It is a tool that can help us think in a different way. And the educational aspects and the components of how it can be used in a classroom, the way that it could adapt its learning. So we just started, Alex, with the idea that, and what you wanted to know something about me, I believe every human being is uniquely special. Their perspective, their lens, what makes them who they are. They look at things in a different world. And therefore, as a leader, as a learner, as a friend, as a mother, as a whatever hat I'm wearing. I'm a mom of 3. I own a small business. I got a lot of things going on in my life, right? Like I have to, though, adapt my style to the needs of the person out there. I have a 15-year-old in high school, and one of his teachers did get a little bit of a long email from me in response to how they felt about using AI in the classroom right now. And I very much strongly advocated the other. If it's used in the right way, if it's taught as a tool where it's not criticized, where people, I mean, just like anything else, you make something illegal, you make it inappropriate, people are going to use it wrong. You teach them how to use the tool and to lean in, it's going to be extraordinary. That tool in an educational environment, it will ask questions, it will learn with the child. It will understand where their gaps are and where it's not, and it will be leveraged that way. It has so much potential to advance versus the other way around.
You and I are going to have to continue this conversation offline. I'm so interested and I love this stuff. And I just put one last thing on the table, and I'd love to hear your reactions if you can. I agree with everything you said. If it's used the right way, right? Because you have the people who are on the moving, the standing, the moving sidewalk in the airport who aren't walking with it, who are standing. There is a tendency to choose the easy. And I also have another colleague who uses his chat for a lot of stuff. And he was complaining to me a few weeks ago, Alex, this chat is so annoying. It keeps disagreeing with it kept disagreeing with me. It kept correcting me. And so he actually spent a good amount of time retraining it so that it would agree with him all the time. And I was like, yeah, but it was disagreeing with you because you were wrong. Like he was asking, it's just such an amazing, again, I use it heavily with my clients. We help them integrate it into the work they do. And it's just like, how do we make sure from an organizational standpoint, as we're integrating these things into our work, how do we make sure people use it right versus leaning into lazy? Or, and unfortunately, I've seen people I've seen people standing on the moving sidewalk.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna, this is the Executive Appeal podcast, and you ask about leadership. It takes leadership, right? There is not a more important thing happening to the world of work or the future of work right now than the digital transformation that is brought on by the tools of AI. And there is not a more important role than a leader can play, not in being the expert on AI. And I work in a SaaS company. I work in a technology company. I have a chief technology officer who is brilliant, who understands machine learning and the programming of it. I have a chief product officer who's like a mentor sitting next to me, who's the most incredibly intelligent woman I probably have ever worked with, and capable woman that I've ever worked with. They can handle where we're introducing it into our technology. My job is to understand mindset shift. My job is to help people feel comfortable with it. And every leader's job is that way too. So is it easy? No, but leadership never is. It's change transformation. It's meeting people where they are. It's helping them understand the incredible impact it can have. And it's teaching them to find the tools that work for them in a space that helps them advance with it. And if they look at it that way and they don't start with criticizing and ignoring it, they won't be left behind. They will be elevated with it. And it's going to be exceptional in what it can do. It also then, yes, with great power comes great responsibility, cheesy Spider-Man quote, but ultimately,
I love it.
To assume and believe in humans, which I still mostly do, most of the time. I know that, yes, we do have to put some controls in place, and we do need to ensure that it doesn't become the Terminator that people are so scared of, but understand that it becomes a digital worker and a partner and a colleague, and it has an opportunity in dialogue to communicate with us. And communication is the key to AI, like it is the key to leadership.
So everyone, just FYI, if you're not already following her on LinkedIn or wherever else she speaks and shares her ideas, do it. So I want to ask, because you've shared so much great advice. I think it's really easy. I used to ask the question, what's the best advice you've received? What's the worst advice you've received? And let people pick, but everyone always went with the best advice. I'd love to hear, what is some advice that you've had in your life, that you've heard in your life, that you were like, that's not right. Like, even though someone said it, could be on the TV or could be in a book or anywhere, like, has there ever been something that you heard that you were like, that's not right. That's not helpful.
Yeah. I have two that come to mind immediately, and I'm going to want to share both of them. So first, and I will not point out the individuals, but I have been told a couple times in my career, and I've seen leaders give this advice, and I've seen it in books as well, and I completely disagree with it. And it's stay in your lane. Stay in your lane is a piece of advice that I've been given, and the idea was to allow for focus or priority, and you can only do so many things. But the advice works for traffic, not transformation, right? My entire career is built on seeing across lanes, on connecting dots, on ensuring that people are able to get in, breaking down silos, in understanding that the most incredible transformations happen by pulling incredible people in with unique perspectives and lenses and connecting that to where we're going. There's been some well-meaning behind that perspective, and it's usually sometimes philanthropic in regards to, or altruistic into supporting someone's well-being, in like you're carrying too much and therefore you might need to choose. But it is the opposite of if people feel like something is an other duty as assigned versus everyone is yours. Everything can be your responsibility and its ability to make something better, to transform a business, to move something forward. The second one, and it was a very, very strong leader that I respect in many, many ways in what he was able to accomplish. But he absolutely believed, and he said to me, you just need more battle scars, when I was younger in my career. And I've seen people wear scars. I've seen it become an armor, and I see them no longer grow. Wisdom doesn't require harm, period. It doesn't. So I completely disagree with that one. So those are the two. I will also, though, because I still have the mic for a second, say the best leadership lesson I got too, even though I know you didn't ask me that one, it was, and I was reflecting on this because it's one of the only ones you gave me ahead of time. And I got emotional in thinking about this. So I do want to give a shout out to two people in my life. I realize in my career, representation matters. Being able to look to a leader that you can look up to matters. My I had two bosses very early in my career. I was 21 years old. I was a graduate student at the University of Florida. I worked both at the Career Center and in the Leadership Academy at the University of Florida, and I ran big leadership and career programs. I had two bosses. I worked almost 40 hours a week between them. They were both fearless Black women, fearless, and absolutely incredible. And what they taught me, they never sat me down and said, "Can I give you advice?" They showed me. They showed me that you have to shrink yourself to meet somebody else's ideal. They walked into every room I saw, and they were so different with their presence, their integrity, their authenticity, their ability to see others and to speak to that. And so that was the greatest leadership lesson I've ever seen. And it wasn't something said to me, it was something shown in their behavior. And it was to not shrink yourself to somebody else's ideal, to understand what you can bring to others. So I want to put that one out there too. And Sarah Nett Williams and Colette Taylor, if you ever see this, you are incredible women.
I love it. Really quickly, book plug. I was looking for right now as you said that there's this book called The Wealth Choice: Success Secrets of Black Millionaires. He was I think it's The Millionaire Next Door. I think it was The Millionaire Next Door, or it's another big one on millionaires. And they actually asked this guy. His name is Dennis Kimbrough, to write a version specifically for Black people, because when you look across the internet at the images of people who've been quote unquote successful, I mean, generally speaking, this is not a knock towards anyone. If you've been successful, you've been successful, but it was generally white males. And so when I read this book and just saw how many like Black millionaires and like CEOs of significant companies that I'd never heard of, it was like, I can do this. I'm not the first one that I can figure this out. And so, like you said, yes, absolutely. And can I ask you in the follow up? I know we got to start wrapping up. What is one hard truth you had to learn that made you a better executive leader?
So I think I'm still learning it. So I'm going to be like, if I'm being very honest, it is a hard truth. It has made me better, and I'm still not great at it. I used to say 25 years now in my industry and where I'm going in different leadership roles, which I can't believe, but absolutely the case. I remember there was like a Toastmasters club I was part of early on because I knew I was a good speaker, and I did a speech about me. And I had this comment at the end where I said, I will continue to climb every ladder, but I'll bring you on my back. I'll bring you with me. And my train will never stop, but there's always space for you to get on, kind of thing, right? So I still kind of function that way. But my hard truth is that not everyone wants to grow at the pace you do. And that's okay. And you can't fix everything. You can't fix everyone. Again, I'm still learning it. And sometimes I still try. But sometimes you got to stop the train. You got to. And if I really practice what I preach, which is what I preach, is that you got to see the person in front of you and what they need. Some people need you to stop the train. They need you to slow down. And they need you to walk at their pace for a minute so that they can maybe start to run and move in the space. And fear tactics don't help you get there.
You and I are kindred spirits in so many different ways. I'm going to share something with you when we jump off. And another hard truth, if I can just add this on top of it, I think you kind of talked about this already in your answer, is sometimes the train can't be slowed down. Sometimes the train can't stop.
It's true.
Especially when you're leading organizations like we got to get here. And there's I've written a new book that's going to come out fairly soon, and it's called Leadership Sucks. And there's for a purpose, but there's a quote from one of my coaching clients in there, and near the end of the book that is just an amazing. She just one day she wrote it to me, and it was a story about her and her father and what he had said to her. And he said, I'll wrap it with this. He had shared that he said, it's not that I don't think you'll be successful. And he said, I think she was like 13 or 15 years old when he said this to her. He's like, it's not that I don't think you'll be successful. I think you're going to be successful. But I think that you're going to make it there and be all alone. Because as you go up the ranks, you try to bring people with you. And you're successful most of the time, but sometimes they're not ready for it. And so you keep going.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to end up alone one day. And that stuck with her for a long time. And she wasn't sure if being successful was okay. And she finally had the realization, I think why she sent this message to me, was like, it's okay to keep going. It's not like you were kicking people or tripping people. Some people are okay where they are. Like they're perfectly happy where they are. Mm-hmm. And it's perfectly okay for you to keep going. Mm-hmm. Tara, you just shared so many amazing stories. I know we're running out of time. I want to open the floor for you really quickly. Is there anything you'd like to share with our audience as we begin to wrap up?
I think I'm not writing a book right now. I'm very focused in AI and digital transformation, the future of work. So I'll do some more podcasts in space. My company is something that I'm very passionate about and where we're going and the impact we have in our industry and what Infotech's able to do for that. So I'll use this time to just say one more comment to what you just said. And I could not agree with you more. Sometimes you cannot stop the train. But as a leader, if you find yourself in the ability where people trust you enough to influence the slowing for a purposeful reason, don't drag people behind you. Create your space, focus on building enough trust, enough clarity where they choose if they need to, or they want to, and understand that some won't, to move with you. And then I would say you had in one of your spaces, I did have a couple of things. As I said, I like the executive summaries and I love the podcasts a lot. I do read a lot of these books. A couple books that came to mind. Liz Wiseman's Multipliers. I recommend that one. Greg McCowan's Essentialism. There's some pieces in there that are pretty special. And then I'm a Brene Brown fan, which nobody would be surprised about. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tara. So that I'm not outdone. I will also plug another book because of this whole idea of AI. This thing called Range. It's a book called Range. I can't remember the author, but I know you can find it online. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Ms. Tara for being not only being here with us like physically, but being here with us like emotionally and in every other way. Because you just, again, for those of you who are watching, not just listening, you probably even heard it at times when you were listening. She really cares about this stuff. And so thank you so much for everything you've shared with us, for being here. For everyone, you know where I'm going with this. If you found any value from this episode, please don't keep it to yourself. Don't just look back, reach back, bring someone else to the table. And all you got to do, the only thing you have to do to make that happen is click the like and click the share. As always, I encourage everyone, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.